Letter 14 of St. Leo the Great, Pope of Rome. Leo, Bishop of the city of Rome, to Anastasius, Bishop of Thessalonica. If with true reasoning you perceived all that has been committed to you, brother, by the blessed Apostle Peter's authority, and what has also been entrusted to you by our favor, and would weigh it fairly, we should be able greatly to rejoice at your zealous discharge of the responsibility imposed on you. Seeing that, as my predecessors acted towards yours, so too I, following their example, have delegated my authority to you, beloved, so that you, imitating our gentleness, might assist us in the care which we owe primarily to all the churches by divine institution, and might to a certain extent make up for our personal presence in visiting those provinces which are far off from us. So it will be easy for you, by regular and well-timed inspection, to tell what and in what cases you could either, by your own influence, settle or reserve for our judgment. For as it is free for you to suspend the more important matters and the harder issues while you awaited our opinion, there was no reason nor necessity for you to go out of your way to decide what was beyond your powers. For you have numerous written warnings of ours, in which we have often instructed you to be temperate in all your actions, that with loving exhortations you might provoke the churches of Christ committed to you to healthy obedience. Because, although as a rule there exist among careless or slothful brethren things which demand a strong hand in rectifying them, yet the correction ought to be so applied as ever to keep love inviolate. Wherefore also it is that the blessed Apostle Paul, in instructing Timothy upon the ruling of the church, says, quote, "An elder rebuke not, but entreat him as a father, the young men as brethren, old women as mothers, young women as sisters in all purity," unquote. 1 Timothy chapter 5, verses 1 and 2. And if this moderation is due by the apostles' precept to all and any of the lower members, how much more is it to be paid without offense to our brethren and fellow bishops, in order that, although things can sometimes happen which have to be reprimanded in the persons of priests, yet kindness may have more effect on those who are to be corrected than severity, exhortation than perturbation, love than power. But they who, quote, seek their own, not the things which are Jesus Christ's, unquote, Philippians chapter 2, verse 21, easily depart from this law, and finding pleasure rather in domineering over their subjects than in consulting their interests, are swollen up with pride of their position, and thus what was provided to secure harmony ministers to mischief. That we are obliged to speak thus causes us no small grief, for I feel myself in a certain measure drawn unto blame, on discovering you to have so immoderately departed from the rules handed down to you. If you are careless of your own reputation, you ought at least to have spared my good name, lest what only your own mind prompted should seem done with our approval. Do but read, brother, our pages with care, and peruse all the letters sent by holders of the apostolic see to your predecessors, and you will find injunctions either from me or from my predecessors on that in which we learn you have presumed. For there has come to us our brother Atticus, the metropolitan bishop of old Epirus, with the bishops of his province, and with tearful pleading has complained of the undeserved contumely he has suffered, in the presence of your own deacons, who, by giving no contradiction to those woeful complaints, showed what was impressed upon us did not want for truth. We read also in your letter that the same deacons of yours brought that brother Atticus had come to Thessalonica, and that he had also sealed his agreement in a written profession, so that we could not but understand concerning him that it was of his own will and free devotion that he had come, and that he had composed the statement of his promise of obedience, although in the very mention of this statement a sign of injury was betrayed. For it was not necessary that he should be bound in writing, who was already proving his obedience by the very dutifulness of his voluntary coming. Wherefore these words in your letter bore witness to the bewailings of the aforesaid, and through his outspoken accounts that which has been passed over in silence is laid bare, namely that the prefecture of Illyricum had been approached, and the most exalted functionary among the potentates of the world had been set in motion to expose an innocent prelate, so that a company was set to carry out the awful deed, who were to enlist all the public servants in giving effect to their orders, and from the church's holy sanctuary, charged with no crime, or at least a false one, was dragged a priest, to whom no truce was granted in consideration of his grievous ill health or the cruel winter weather, but he was forced to take a journey full of hardships and dangers through the pathless snows. And this was a task of such toil and peril that some of those who accompanied the bishop are said to have succumbed. I am quite dumbfounded, beloved brother, yea, and I am also sore grieved, that you brought yourself to be so savagely and violently moved against one about whom you had laid no further information than that when summoned to appear, he put off and excused himself on the grounds of illness, especially when, if he had deserved any such treatment, you should have waited till I had replied to your consulting letter. But, as I perceive, you thought too well of my habits, and most truly foresaw how fair-minded an answer I was likely to make to preserve harmony among priests, and therefore you made haste to carry out your movements without concealment, lest when you had received the letter of our forbearance dictating another course, you should have no license to do that which is done. Or perhaps some crime had reached your ears, and metropolitan bishop that you are, the weight of some new charge pressed you hard. But that is not consistent with the facts you yourself make certain by laying nothing against him. Yet even if he had committed some grave, but that this is not consistent with the fact you yourself make certain by laying nothing against him. Yet even if he had committed some grave and intolerable misdemeanor, you should have waited for our opinion, so as to arrive at no decision by yourself until you knew our pleasure. But we made you our deputy, beloved, on the understanding that you were engaged to share our responsibility, not to take plenary powers on yourself. Wherefore as to what you bestow a pious care on delights us much, so your wrongful acts grieve us sorely, and after experience of many cases we must show greater foresight, and use more diligent precaution, to the end that through the spirit of love and peace all manner of offense may be removed from the Lord's churches, which we have commended to you, the preeminence of your bishopric being retained in the provinces, by all your usurping excesses being shorn off. Therefore, according to the canons of the Holy Fathers, which are framed by the Spirit of God and hallowed by the whole world's reverence, we decree that the metropolitan bishops of each province over which your care, brother, extends by our delicacy, shall keep untouched the rights of their position which have been handed down to them from olden times, but on condition that they do not depart from the existing regulations by any carelessness or arrogance. In cities whose governors have died, let this form be observed in filling up their place. He who is to be ordained, even though his good life be not attested, shall be not a layman, nor a neophyte, nor yet the husband of a second wife, or one who, though he has had but one, married a widow. For the choosing of priests is of such surpassing importance, that things which in other members of the church are not blameworthy, are yet held unlawful in them. For although they who are not within the ranks of the clergy are free to take pleasure in the companionship of wedlock and the procreation of children, yet for the exhibiting of the purity of complete continence, even subdeacons are not allowed carnal marriage, that, quote, both those that have may be those they had not, and, quote, those that have not may remain single. But if this is an order, which is the fourth from the head, this is worthy to be observed. How much more is to be kept in the first, or second, or third, lest anyone be reckoned fit for either the deacon's duties, or the presbyter's honorable position, or the bishop's preeminence, who is discovered not yet to have bridled his uxorious desires. When therefore the choice of the chief priest is taken in hand, let him be preferred before all whom the unanimous consent of clergy and people demands. But if the votes chance to be divided between two persons, the judgment of the metropolitan should prefer him who is supported by the preponderance of votes and merits. Only let no one be ordained against the express wishes of the place, lest the city should either despise or hate a bishop whom they did not choose, and lamentably fall away from religion, because they have not been allowed to have whom they wished. However, the metropolitan bishop should refer to you, brother, about the person to be consecrated bishop, and about the consent of the clergy and people, and he should acquaint you with the wishes of the province, that the due celebration of his ordination may be strengthened by your authority also. But to Rite selections it will be your duty to cause no delay or hindrance, lest the Lord's flocks should remain so long without their shepherd's care. Moreover, when a metropolitan is defunct and another has to be elected into his place, the bishops of the province must meet together in the metropolitical city, that after the wishes of all the clerics and all the citizens have been sifted, the best man may be chosen from the presbyters of that same church or from the deacons, and you are to be informed of his name by the priests of the province, who will carry out the wishes of his supporters on ascertaining that you agree with their choice. For while we desire proper elections to be hampered by no delays, we yet allow nothing to be done presumptuously without your knowledge. Concerning councils of bishops, we give no other instructions than those laid down for the church's health by the Holy Fathers, to wit, that 2 meetings should be held a year, and which judgment should be passed upon all the complaints which are wont to arise between the various ranks of the church. But if perchance among the rulers themselves a cause arise, which, God forbid, concerning one of the greater sins, such as cannot be decided by a provincial trial, the metropolitan shall take care to inform you, brother, concerning the nature of the whole matter. And if, after both parties have come before you, the thing be not set at rest even by your judgment, whatever it be, let it be transferred to our jurisdiction. If any bishop, despising the insignificance of his city, shall intrigue for the government of a more populous place, and transfer himself by whatever means to a larger flock, he shall first be driven from the chair he has usurped, and also shall be deprived of his own. So shall he preside neither over those whom in his greed he coveted, nor over those whom in his arrogance he spurned. Therefore, let us each be content with his own bounds, and not seek to be raised above the limits of his present post. Therefore, let each be content with his own bounds, and not seek to be raised above the limits of his present post. A cleric from another diocese, let no bishop accept or invite against the wishes of his own bishop, but only when giver and receiver agree together thereupon by friendly compact. For a man is guilty of a serious injury who ventures either to entice or withhold from a brother's church that which is of great use or high value. And so, if such a thing happen within the province, the metropolitan shall force the deserting cleric to return to his church, but if he has withdrawn himself still further off, he shall be recalled by your authoritative command, so that no occasion be left for either desire of gain or of intrigue. In summoning bishops to your presence, we wish you to show great forbearance, lest under a show of much diligence you seem to exult in your brethren's injuries. Wherefore, if any greater case arise for which it is reasonable and necessary to convene a meeting of the brethren, it may suffice, brother, that 2 bishops should attend from each province, whom the metropolitan shall think proper to be sent, on the understanding that those who answer the summons be not detained longer than 15 days from the time fixed. But if in that which you believe necessary to be discussed and settled with your brethren, their opinion differs from your own wishes, let all be referred to us, with the minutes of your proceedings attested, that all ambiguities may be removed, and that what is pleasing to God be decided. For to this end we direct all our desires and pains, that which conduces to our harmonious unity, and to the protection of discipline, may be marred by no dissension, and neglected by no slothfulness. Therefore, dearly beloved brother, you and those our brethren who are offended at your extravagant conduct, though the matter of complaint is not the same with all, we exhort and warn so as not to disturb by any wrangling what has been rightfully ordained and wisely settled. Let none, quote, seek what is his own, but what is another's, unquote, as the apostle says. Let each one of you who please his neighbor for his good. Let each one of you please his neighbor for his good, unto edification. For the cementing of our unity cannot be firm unless we be bound by the bond of love into an inseparable solidity. Because, quote, as many as in one body we have many members, but all the members have not the same office, so we being many are one body in Christ, and all of us members one of another, unquote. The connection of the whole body makes all alike healthy, all alike beautiful, and this connection requires the unanimity, indeed, of the whole body, but it especially demands harmony among the priests. And though we have a common dignity, yet they have not uniform rank, inasmuch as even among the blessed apostles, notwithstanding the similarity of their honorable estate, there was a certain distinction of power, and while the election of them all was equal, yet it was given to one to take the lead of the rest. From which model has arisen a distinction between bishops also, and by an important ordinance it has been provided that every one should not claim everything for himself, but that there should be in each province one whose opinion should have the priority among the brethren, and again, that certain whose appointment is in the greater cities should undertake a fuller responsibility, through whom the care of the universal church should converge toward Peter's one seat, and nothing anywhere should be separated from its head. Let not him, then, who knows he has been set over certain others, take it ill that some one has been set over him, but let he himself render the obedience which he demands of them. And as he does not wish to bear a heavy load of baggage, so let him not dare to place on other shoulders a weight that is unsupportable. For we are disciples of the humble and gentle Master, who says, quote, learn of me, for I am gentle and humble of heart, and ye shall find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy, and my burden light, unquote. Matthew chapter 11, verses 29 through 30. And how shall we experience this, unless this too comes to our remembrance, which the same Lord says, quote, he that is greater among you shall be your servant, but he that exalts himself shall be humbled, and he that humbles himself shall be exalted, unquote.